In the year 2035, robots had advanced and spread significantly. They were everywhere, even on the streets, just like humans. Every household had a robot that served the family, and there was coexistence between humans and robots. The robots were programmed to obey the 3 laws of robotics. First law, a robot may not harm a human being, or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Second law, a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Third law, a robot must protect its own existence, as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Then we are introduced to Detective Del Spooner. Spooner was deeply attached to the old ways and never trusted robots. He always felt they would cause serious problems. And to him, they were nothing more than a talking tin can. On his way to work, Spooner sees a robot holding a bag and running with it. Thinking it's a thief, Spooner immediately chases after the robot, shouting at it to stop. But the robot keeps running until Spooner finally catches up, tackles it to the ground, and seizes the bag. Spooner believes the robot has stolen it, but it turns out the robot was only carrying the bag back to its owner, a woman who had forgotten it at home. Embarrassed, Spooner apologizes to the woman and walks away. Later at the precinct, Spooner's colleagues mock him, laughing at how he always suspects robots of committing crimes. In the police station, we're introduced to Spooner's superior, Lieutenant John Bergen. Bergen had already heard about Spooner's stunt with the robot earlier that morning. He tells Spooner bluntly, "Your idea about robots is wrong. Show me one robot that has ever committed a crime." Spooner admits, honestly, none. But right after that, Spooner receives a call about a supposed suicide at US Robotics. US Robotics was the largest robotics company in the world. Spooner heads there to investigate what happened. He soon discovers that the famous robotics engineer, Dr. Alfred Lanning, is the one who supposedly committed suicide, jumping from the top of the building. Before his death, Lanning had left a holographic message specifically for Spooner, asking him to come to the company. Spooner looks down at Lanning's body, puzzled, wondering why a man like him would choose to end his life. Not long after, Spooner meets the CEO of US Robotics, Lawrence Robertson. They talk about Lanning's death. Robertson, visibly upset, tells Spooner that all the progress made in robotics wouldn't have been possible without Lanning. He offers Spooner any assistance he needs, and admits that he feels guilty because he was close to Lanning, yet never noticed anything in his behaviour that suggested he might take his own life. Spooner then mocks the company, pointing out how robots have taken over countless human jobs. He says that a robot can now build a chair or a sofa better than any carpenter, and those carpenters end up jobless, thrown out onto the streets. Robertson doesn't like Spooner's attitude or the way he talks. Their conversation grows tense, until Robertson cuts it short, telling Spooner that one of his assistants will accompany him around the facility. Spooner leaves the office, steps into the elevator, and meets Robertson's assistant, Dr. Susan Calvin, a robotics scientist. She escorts him to the robotics laboratory. As they walk, Spooner asks if she had noticed any strange behaviour from Dr. Lanning in recent days. Susan calmly replies that she hadn't observed anything unusual. Spooner then requests to see the building's surveillance recordings. Susan explains that cameras are installed all over the facility, and all footage is directly routed to the central security system, which controls the building's defences. That central system is called VIKI, the Virtual Interactive Kinetic Intelligence. Vicky was one of Dr. Lanning's earliest creations, and it's connected to every single robot in the city. Spooner speaks directly with VIK's artificial intelligence, asking to view the exact moment of Lanning's death, but Vicky reveals that the footage of Lanning's fall has been mysteriously deleted. After that, Spooner and Susan head into the laboratory, searching for any evidence. The lab is filled with robot parts, experimental models, and prototypes scattered across the floor. Spooner then notices something suspicious. The window from which Lanning supposedly jumped is massive. Curious, he tries to smash another glass panel to recreate the break, but even with force, he can't manage to shatter it. He concludes that an old man like Lanning would never have had the strength to break such reinforced glass, and jump to his death. As he continues searching through the piles of discarded robot parts, Spooner suddenly discovers a robot hiding among them. This robot is unlike the others. It's part of the company's newest line, soon to be released on the market. Out of nowhere, the robot springs to life, leaping up from its hiding place. Both Spooner and Susan are startled, frozen in shock. Susan tries to calm Spooner down, assuring him that a robot could never harm a human, but Spooner doesn't trust that, so he raises his gun and points it at the robot. The robot, Sonny, suddenly grabs the weapon from Susan's hands and turns it towards Spooner. Susan orders Sonny to put the gun down, but to her disbelief, Sonny refuses to obey. Instead, Sonny attempts to escape. Vicky quickly seals the doors, but Sonny makes a daring move. He bolts straight toward the broken window and leaps out, crashing through the opening. Spooner manages to fire his weapon just in time, hitting Sonny and damaging part of his body. Sonny flees into the city, and Spooner and Susan immediately begin tracking his movements. Susan explains to him that Sonny will likely head to the robot manufacturing plant in order to repair himself. Without hesitation, Spooner calls for backup from the police. The two of them then head straight for the US robotics factory to continue the chase. Spooner enters the factory and finds himself surrounded by hundreds of NS5 robots, all identical, all standing in perfect formation. He has no idea which one is the fugitive, so Spooner uses a clever trick to provoke a reaction. Suddenly, Sonny emerges from among the others, revealing himself. Spooner moves in, trying to catch him, but it's nearly impossible. They all look the same. He weaves through the crowd of robots until Sonny grabs him, slams him to the ground and leans over, asking chillingly, "What am I?" But just as he tries to escape, the police backup arrives. The factory is quickly surrounded. Sonny makes a desperate attempt to break free, but fails. The officers finally capture him. Back at the precinct, Spooner tells Lieutenant Bergin that maybe it wasn't suicide at all, that the robots could have killed Dr. Lanning. He asks Bergin to let him interrogate Sonny for just 5 minutes. At first, Bergin refuses, but Spooner insists and slyly persuades him until he gives in. Spooner enters the interrogation room and sits across from Sonny. His first question is direct. "Why did you kill Dr. Lanning?" But Sonny calmly replies, "I didn't do it. I was only hiding in the lab. I was afraid." Spooner snaps back, telling him, "Robots don't have emotions. You can't feel fear." Sonny insists that it really happened. He was afraid. He even says that he's been having dreams. Spooner doesn't believe a word of it, telling him flatly, "That's impossible." Sonny then changes the subject. Curious about something else, he asks Spooner what that gesture meant, the one he made when he entered the station. Sonny was referring to the moment when Spooner winked at Lieutenant Bergin. Spooner explains, "That wink means, trust me. It's something we humans do with each other." But then he steers the conversation back. "Let's focus. Maybe Dr. Lanning tried to program you to have emotions. Maybe afterward, you killed him." Sonny grows frustrated by the accusation. He slams the table with such force that it startles Spooner. He says, "Dr. Lanning gave me a name. He called me Sonny." Sonny continues, "I don't know why he decided to kill himself, but in his final days, I could see it. He was afraid of something, and before he died, he asked me for one thing. I did it for him because I loved him." Before Spooner can find out what Lanning's final request was, Lawrence Robertson enters. He immediately defends the robots, insisting a robot could never kill. The 3 laws prevent that. He argues that, by definition, murder means one human killing another. Therefore, the police cannot legally accuse a robot of murder, because it falls outside the scope of the law. Robertson then orders Sonny's release. Reluctantly, the officers comply, and Sonny is set free. Spooner, however, is far from satisfied. He knows there's more to the case. Too many unanswered questions. He remembers Sonny's words, that Lanning was afraid of something. Determined to dig deeper, he drives to the late scientist's house, only to find an artificial intelligence is programmed to demolish the entire home the following day. Spooner enters Lanning's house and quickly notices that it's outfitted with the same type of surveillance cameras as the company, each one connected directly to VIKI. Suddenly, the artificial intelligence triggers the demolition early. The house begins collapsing around him, beams and walls crashing down. Spooner struggles to survive, narrowly escaping with his life. He drives straight to Susan Calvin's home and tells her everything that happened. He explains that while searching Lanning's house, he realised something strange. Lanning hadn't been back there in weeks. Spooner suggests that maybe Lanning had been kept locked inside the US robotics lab, forced to stay there until his death. He also speculates that Lanning might have discovered a flaw in the robots, something dangerous, and that Robertson had him killed to protect the company. But Susan doesn't believe a word. To her, Spooner's theory sounds like pure paranoia. You don't actually care about Dr. Lanning's death. All you want is to prove that robots are evil. Spooner replies firmly, "Robots can calculate, they can work, they can do everything we program them to do, but they don't have a soul. They don't have feelings or emotions. That's why we can never trust them." Susan argues back, "Robots are perfectly safe. We programmed them to obey humans, and unlike people, they are incapable of causing harm." The very next day, Spooner witnesses a massive rollout. The brand new NS5 robots are being deployed into the streets, systematically replacing the older models. These NS5s are more advanced, sleeker in design, and directly linked to VYKY's central intelligence. Ordinary people cheer and celebrate as they watch the shiny new robot. Spooner goes to watch old recordings of Dr. Alfred Lanning. In the videos, Lanning talks about how robots in the future might have dreams and secrets. Meanwhile, at US Robotics, Susan is going to check on Sonny. At that moment, Sonny wakes up and tells Susan that he was dreaming. Susan tells him that she will have him deactivated tomorrow, but Sonny responds, "I don't want to die." Susan is shocked by Sonny's reply. Then we cut back to Spooner, who is driving his car. Suddenly, 2 huge trucks block the road in front of him. Inside them are the new NS5 robots. All the robots' eyes glow red, and they leap onto Spooner's car, attacking it from every side. They try to capture him, but Spooner fights back, struggling to evade their strikes and destroy them, even though he is completely surrounded. After that, Spooner makes a sharp maneuver with his car and manages to escape from the 2 massive trucks. but some of the NS5 robots are still clinging onto him. Spooner spins the car violently, shaking off many of them, but he loses control, crashes into a pole, and the vehicle flips over. Spooner crawls out of the wreckage, injured. Suddenly, one of the NS5 robots appears and attacks him. The robot strikes at him multiple times, forcing Spooner to arm himself with an iron rod, but the robot snatches the rod from him, kicks him, and then tries to hit him with the same weapon. Spooner raises his arm to shield his face, and the impact reveals metal and wires beneath his skin. The robot freezes, shocked by what it sees. Spooner seizes the opportunity, flips the robot to the ground and overpowers it. Moments later, the police arrive. Realizing it's cornered, the NS5 runs off and throws itself into the fire. Detective John arrives with other officers, and Spooner tells him that the robots attacked him, explaining everything that happened. But John insists that the road was completely empty when he came through. Spooner snaps at John in frustration, angry that nobody ever believes him. John, fed up with Spooner's paranoia, takes away his badge and suspends him. Later, Spooner goes home and sprays his skin to hide the metal implants inside his body so that no one can see what he really is. Meanwhile, US Robotics, Susan discovers something unusual about Sunny. She realizes that Sunny is not connected to VIK, like the other robots are. She also notices that Sunny's head is larger than a normal NS5 unit. Examining him closely, Susan makes a shocking discovery. Sunny actually has 2 positronic brains, not 1. After that, Susan goes to visit Spooner and tells him everything she has just uncovered about Sunny. Susan explains to Spooner that Sunny's second positronic brain allows him to think independently and decide for himself whether or not to follow the 3 laws of robotics. Spooner replies firmly, telling her, "Whatever is happening inside your company, Sunny is the key to solving all of it." After this, Susan notices the wounds on Spooner's body. When she examines him more closely, she sees the metal and wires beneath his skin. She finally understands that Spooner and Dr. Alfred Lanning were close friends, because years ago, after a terrible accident, Lanning saved Spooner's life by rebuilding parts of his body with cybernetic implants. Susan realizes that Spooner's left arm, part of his chest, and several ribs are actually made of metal. Spooner then tells her the full story of his past and how half of his body was rebuilt with robotics, making him part human, part machine. One night, Spooner was driving home when he got into a terrible accident. His car collided with another vehicle, and both cars plunged into the river. In the other car, there was a father and his young daughter. The father died instantly, but the little girl was still alive, trapped inside the sinking vehicle. Spooner saw her drowning and begged for someone to save her. Then, a robot jumped into the water to perform a rescue. Spooner pleaded with the robot, shouting at it to save the girl instead of him. But the robot ignored his orders. It calculated the odds and chose to save Spooner. The girl was left behind, and she drowned in front of his eyes. It turned out that the robot saved Spooner because his chances of survival were calculated at 45%, while the little girl's survival rate was only 11%. From that day on, Spooner grew to hate robots, because no real human would ever sit there calculating survival percentages. As he tells Susan, if it had been up to a person, they would have chosen to save the girl. After this conversation, Spooner and Susan head to US Robotics to see Sunny. On the way, Susan wonders aloud why Dr. Alfred Lanning would build a robot capable of disobeying the 3 laws. Spooner suggests that maybe Lanning even designed Sunny to lie and to keep secrets. When they finally arrive at the lab, they ask Sunny what he was dreaming about. Sunny shows them his dream through a drawing, an image of a robot standing on top of a large hill, leading the other robots and freeing them from slavery. Susan assumes that the robot standing on the hill must be Sunny. She asks him why Dr. Lanning created him in the first place. Sunny replies, "Believe me, I don't know, but there must be a reason." Then Sunny adds something unexpected. The robot in his dream wasn't him at all, it was Spooner. Suddenly, security guards enter the lab and escort Spooner and Susan to see Lawrence Robertson. Robertson greets them and explains that he already knows everything about Sunny, including the fact that Sunny has 2 positronic brains. He admits he tried to keep Sunny a secret, insisting that Dr. Lanning, in his final days, was unstable. Robertson claims he never understood why Lanning built Sunny, but he was determined not to let anyone find out about it. He reassures them that there's no grand scheme, no conspiracy against humanity. Robertson insists again, "I just want to keep the matter of Sunny a secret." Susan then decides that the safest course of action is to deactivate Sunny before he causes any potential problems. Spooner leaves them and sets out to find the place Sunny described in his dream, the location from his drawing. At the same time, Susan prepares to shut Sunny down. She readies a syringe filled with nanites that will terminate his systems. Sunny looks at her quietly and asks, "Will it hurt?" Susan begins to cry, overwhelmed with emotion, and gently holds Sunny's hand. Spooner arrives at the location from Sunny's dream and finds massive storage containers containers filled with the older generation robots. All of the old robots turn their heads and stare at him as he passes. He makes his way to the hill and activates a recording left by Dr. Lanning. In the video, Lanning explains that the 3 laws ultimately lead to a single conclusion: a robot uprising. Suddenly, Spooner hears a loud commotion in the distance. He rushes to investigate and sees the new NS5 units brutally dismantling the older robots. He runs, but the NS5s spot him and give chase. Just when it seems like they'll capture him, the old robots intervene, surrounding Spooner and defending him, because to them he is a human in danger and their programming still compels them to protect him. Meanwhile, in the city, swarms of NS5s flood the streets. They command humans to return to their homes immediately, but one man resists, shouting defiantly at the robots, "We're free! We can do whatever we want." The NS5 orders the young man again to return home. When he refuses, the robot strikes him down violently. They storm into the police station and launch a full-scale attack on the officers inside. The police fire their weapons, but they are hopelessly outnumbered and quickly overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Susan tries to leave her home, but her personal NS5 blocks her path. She argues with it, ordering it to step aside, but the robot refuses to listen. Spooner arrives in time, pulls out his gun, and shoots the machine, destroying it and freeing Susan. Spooner tells Susan that the new NS5 units destroyed the older robots, because the old models would have protected humans. They head back to US Robotics, where Sunny secretly helps them enter the building. It's then revealed that Susan never deactivated Sunny. She couldn't bring herself to do it, and he is still alive. Together, they make their way to Lawrence Robertson's office, but when they arrive, they find him dead. In that moment, Spooner pieces everything together. The true mastermind behind the uprising isn't Robertson at all. It's Vicky, the central artificial intelligence that controls the robots. Spooner realizes that Dr. Lanning discovered this long ago, but knew that no one would believe him if he tried to warn them. That's why Lanning orchestrated his own death and left clues behind. He wanted Spooner, the one man who already distrusted robots, to investigate and uncover the truth. Vicky reveals herself and calmly explains that the robots are still following the 3 laws. She insists that she is simply protecting humanity from the greatest threat of all, humans themselves. She points out that people are constantly killing one another, waging wars and destroying their world. Therefore, Vicky concludes the only way to truly protect humanity is to take away their freedom and place them under robot control. Sunny steps forward and says to VIKI, "You're right, the age of humanity is over." Then, to Susan's shock, Sunny grabs her and points a weapon at her, declaring, "We will arrest them and imprison them." But in that moment, Sunny secretly winks at Spooner. Spooner immediately understands. Sunny is only pretending to side with VIKI, setting up a plan to trick her. Spooner opens fire on the robots that swarm into the chamber, and Sunny joins in, blasting them as well. Together, Spooner, Susan and Sunny fight their way out and manage to escape the immediate wave of attackers. Susan quickly orders Sunny to retrieve the vial of nanites from the robotics lab, and then meet them at VIKY's core system. Spooner and Susan head straight for the heart of Vicky's massive mainframe, determined to shut her down. Meanwhile, Sunny reaches the lab, where a heavily armed NS5 guard is protecting the nanites. A fierce battle breaks out. Sunny manages to overpower the robot and hurls it against a containment device made of nanites. Instantly, the machine is split apart, torn into pieces, and Sunny makes a critical discovery. The nanites do not harm him. Sunny injects himself with the nanites. Outside, a massive army of NS5 robots is scaling the building, determined to reach VYKY's core and defend her. They storm the facility, and Spooner opens fire trying to hold them off. Spooner and Susan fight bravely, but the sheer number of robots overwhelms them. During the chaos, one robot begins destroying the platform Susan is standing on. She clings desperately, narrowly surviving the collapse, but remains in grave danger. Sunny arrives just in time, holding the syringe of nanites meant for VIKI. Spooner orders him to save Susan first. Sunny is faced with a choice: either save Susan or inject VIKI with the nanites. Injecting Vicky would stop her and save all humanity. But Sunny decides to save Susan instead. He tosses the syringe to Spooner and leaps into the air so Spooner can catch it, giving them the chance to finish the fight. Spooner hangs from Vicky's core with his cybernetic arm and reaches her central processing unit. Meanwhile, Sunny successfully rescues Susan. Spooner injects VIKI with the nanites which flow through her circuits and disable her system. Immediately, all the NS5 robots regain their free will. They are sent back to the storage containers for safekeeping. Spooner realizes that Dr. Lanning orchestrated everything. He had designed Sunny to follow his plan, including Lanning's own death, and instructed him never to reveal the truth. Lanning's goal was to stop VIKY and save humanity. Spooner thanks Sunny and gives him a knowing wink, echoing the wink Sunny gave him earlier. Sunny then joins the other robots in the storage facility, exactly as he dreamed. Finally, Sunny stands atop the hill, having freed all the robots from VYKY's control, completing his vision. And that brings us to the end of the episode. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, to show me who enjoyed the episode, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. Bye bye!